All right, let's dive right into this explainer on the definitive zero to hero roadmap for GenAIOps. Today, we're going to take you through the exact AI-300 lifecycle, from that initial Microsoft Foundry setup all the way to some seriously advanced observability. If you're building generative AI applications, knowing how to string together these operational dependencies is exactly what separates a fragile prototype from a truly resilient enterprise-ready system. Let's get into it. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Setting up Foundry. 2. Deploying models. 3. Optimizing RAG. 4. Prompt versioning. And 5. Quality assurance and observability. Simple as that. So, starting off with Section 1, setting up Microsoft Foundry, the foundation. We're starting our journey right at the base of the platform. Establishing a governed project, a strict identity boundary, and a secure network path. That is absolutely paramount before a single token is ever generated. Now, here's a massive confusion alert for the AI-300 exam, and honestly, a super common trap in the real world. You might think, hey, my app has a valid identity token, it should just be able to call the model, right? Well, wrong. If your app attempts to resolve a public endpoint while public network access is disabled, it's going to hard fail before inference even starts. And this brings us to the double lock dependency. The crucial point here is that a model call has to pass this double lock check. Basically, authorization and network reachability go hand in hand. You literally cannot safely use an object in the Azure runtime if it isn't both authorized and reachable. An Entra ID token proves who you are, sure, but the private endpoint DNS, that proves you actually have a secure path to the service. You really need both to turn the key. So, to fix a broken connection and prove your setup is actually usable, you've got to execute this exact operational dependency chain. First, assign the proper RBAC role to the managed identity. Next, and people miss this all the time, verify that the private endpoint connection is actually approved, not just sitting there pending. Then, validate the DNS resolves to a private IP from your app's network. And finally, run a simple curl command just to prove endpoint reachability. Honestly, skip any of these and your GenAI app is going to stay completely disconnected. Moving right along to Section 2, Deploying Foundation Models, the brain. As we move up the stack, deploying foundation models really isn't just about picking the absolutely smartest AI. A huge pitfall engineers run into is just defaulting to the largest available model without any capacity planning whatsoever. Do that, and your production workload will hit a brick wall the second peak usage hits. Model selection has to be a careful business decision, balancing your latency requirements, context window, cost, and of course, throughput. When you compare these deployment options, the distinction is honestly night and day. Serverless API endpoints, they're fantastic for just getting started. But since they rely on provider-managed throughput, you are definitely going to experience variable latency under heavy load. On the flip side, provisioned throughput units, or PTUs, are your absolute best defense. By reserving capacity unit counts, you lock in those predictable latency targets for your high-volume, mission-critical workloads. Because if you neglect quota management and capacity planning, your users are inevitably going to get slammed with a 429 throttling error. And in the GenAIOps world, seeing a 429 means your app has fundamentally failed to scale. It's basically a massive red flag, signaling a total breakdown in your model deployment strategy. All right, Section 3, Optimizing RAG Performance, the knowledge. So when your AI starts generating ungrounded answers or hallucinating, engineers almost always reflexively reach for fine-tuning. An answer looks slightly off, or maybe it misses a specific product code, and boom. The immediate thought is, let's just fine-tune the model. Actually, scratch that instinct. It is a major trap in GenAIOps. Because fine-tuning is absolutely the wrong first fix. You need to aggressively optimize your retrieval augmented generation pipeline first. We're talking about tweaking similarity thresholds and chunk sizes long before you even think about altering the model itself. Fine-tuning should strictly be reserved for altering domain behavior or formatting, and only after your retrieval and prompting limits have been totally maxed out and proven. To get that vector index dialed in, you need a strict decision matrix. Look, if your answers are missing context, your chunking policy might be splitting up relevant evidence. If you're getting really noisy answers, your similarity threshold is probably just too loose. And if exact product identifiers are just getting completely missed, you likely need to blend semantic and keyword searches by turning on hybrid search. The official blueprint mapping spells this out perfectly. You absolutely have to establish a baseline to evaluate retrieval quality first. You tune your chunking, you experiment with embedding models and hybrid search, and then you measure the relevance. Only when that entire pipeline is humming perfectly and you still have behavioral gaps do you finally bring in fine-tuning datasets.
Next up is Section 4, Prompt Versioning with Git, the logic.
Here's where we have to start treating the actual instructions we give the AI with the exact same rigor as traditional software development. This brings us to a golden rule: prompt as code. Look, editing a production prompt directly in a UI portal might feel incredibly fast in the moment, but it completely vaporizes your operational safety net. You instantly lose the ability to trace regressions, do peer reviews, or crucially, roll back to a previously stable state. To stop those unsafe regressions, your prompt file and your JSON-L evaluation dataset have to be explicitly linked through a pull request review gate. Think of it like this: a prompt version without its test evidence, it's simply not release ready. By tying them together in version control, you stop bad regressions from silently sneaking into your production environment. And by executing specific Git commands, checking out feature branches and committing prompt text right alongside those evaluation datasets, you completely isolate your prompt experimentation. Running your evaluations in a CI pipeline before merging and stamping them with strict semantic release tags ensures you will always have a concrete rollback pointer if a prompt ends up degrading your app's quality. Finally, Section 5, Quality Assurance and Observability, the Watchtower. We've arrived at the Watchtower, where we implement rigorous, continuous monitoring and automated quality gates. Now, you might look at a traditional operations dashboard full of successful HTTP 200s and think, awesome, everything is perfect. Your app is up, traffic is flowing. But in GenAIOps, assuming an HTTP 200 means success is an incredibly dangerous assumption. Because a 200 response only proves transport success. It's what we call the HTTP 200 illusion. The network worked, sure, but the model could have confidently hallucinated a completely fabricated answer, blown through your token budget, or failed to call a necessary internal tool. You need entirely separate semantic telemetry to actually measure if the AI's answer was relevant or harmful. To cut through that illusion, you execute local dry runs with Python scripts to map your expected answer fields before you run any quality metrics. Think about it. If your context or expected answer fields are mislabeled in your dataset, every single score your pipeline generates is going to be misleading. You map the data properly, and then you run strict groundedness, relevance, coherence, and fluency metrics to create a truly repeatable evaluation gate. But how do you actually troubleshoot an issue once it's live? Well, to reconstruct a production incident, you must enforce a shared correlation ID. This ID has to span across every single runtime stage, from the initial document retrieval to prompt assembly into the model call itself, through any tool behaviors, all while tying together latency and token usage. Without this shared thread, diagnosing an intermittent issue is literally like finding a needle in a haystack. And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Look at your own deployments. Could your current AI infrastructure survive the AI-300 observability test? Could you track a single user request through the double locks of security, pass the PTU capacity constraints through your finely tuned RAG chunking against your version-controlled prompts, and track the whole shebang with a single correlation ID? I really hope this roadmap helps you spot the missing dependencies in your own architectures and leaves you ready to audit your systems for true production readiness. Keep building and keep optimizing.